Well, last night in Las Vegas, Democratic presidential hopefuls battled it out on stage in an effort to gain additional support with American voters. And for years, one of them, Senator Bernie Sanders, has publicly criticized big tech companies for the treatment of their workers. But that hasn't alienated everyone in the industry. Joining me now is Sam Dean. He's a business reporter covering technology for the Los Angeles Times. So, you know what's so interesting about this is he's been so hard, Bernie Sanders, on the tech industry. So where is this support coming from?
I think that's partly where the support is coming from. I mean, a lot of the people who are donating to his campaign are the blue-collar warehouse workers. And he's put bills into Congress. He's tried to introduce measures to actually make Jeff Bezos increase their minimum wage, which he did. So he's garnered a lot of support from those workers for expressing that kind of solidarity. And similarly, on the white-collar side, he has a lot of support recently from workers at Google. And that tends to be more programmers, coders, white-collar workers. But there's a lot of employee activism going on at these companies as well, which then he's come out and supported publicly many times against their kind of bosses trying to shut it down. So
interesting, because Bernie Sanders has gained a substantial amount of donations in the fourth quarter in 2019. What do you attribute that to?
I think that there's just been a bit of a momentum. You look overall, the tech workers have been supporting the kind of progressive wing of the candidates. Yes. Biden and Klobuchar have not had a lot of support, whereas Warren and Sanders have. But in the fourth quarter, the Warren donations really kind of seemed to slide, and everyone shifted towards Sanders, which I think is an interesting picture of what this kind of progressive-leaning white-collar worker is looking to.
Andrew Yang has a solid foundation in the tech industry. He's dropped out of the race. Where do you think his support will go to?
I think it's really up in the air because there's a lot of polling that shows that Andrew Yang supporters do also support Bernie Sanders.
Yeah.
But if you're into more of the kind of UBI technocratic libertarian side of things, they could just sit it out or vote for someone like Bloomberg, Tom Steyer. It's hard to say.
So let's say if someone other than Bernie Sanders receives that support, how big of a threat do you think that could be for Sanders' campaign?
Well, I think ultimately this is a pretty small percentage of the overall money that are going to these campaigns. Just last night they raised, I think Warren and Sanders both got over $2 million. And over this whole spending from tech employees is under $5 million total. So, you know, net, it's not that big of an impact.
Yeah.
But in the fact that these are the people building the products that are spreading the advertisement, building the products that we use every day, the decisions that they make when they're building these things could kind of change the direction of the campaign.
And change our everyday lives in many cases, you know, of what they're doing.
Right.
I'm just curious, Sam, what are you watching for when you watch this tech industry and you're looking at politics? You mentioned it's not a huge chunk of the donations coming in, right? Where do you think this can make the biggest difference in the Democratic Party in the campaign?
Well, I think it's interesting from a business perspective on seeing what a kind of snapshot of the politics is inside these companies, because we don't often get to see the internal conversations that are happening every day at Google, at Facebook, but we get to see kind of where they're leaning politically through this kind of donation information. And I think as far as the campaign in general is concerned, you know, it's a little bit of a weird bubble in Silicon Valley. So I don't know that it really represents the electorate as a whole, but it does show where the kind of most online, the most tech-savvy people who often end up going into the administrations are looking politically.
And on the other side of it, the Republican Party, you know, President Trump was with Larry Ellison yesterday.
Yeah.
What are you hearing from that and also Republican support?
Well, the campaign finance information is a lot thinner on the ground from the Republican side. A lot of this came from ActBlue, which recently put out a giant cache of data. So it's harder to say on the Republican side, but there are definitely strong Republican-leaning tech CEOs, Peter Thiel, Larry Ellison.
Yes.
And so we'll see how much that actually shifts the money game down the line. And also that could lead a lot into a dark money, more PAC-oriented spending. So.
All right, well, thank you very much for joining us. For the LA Times, Sam Dean, thank you.
Thanks.
You bet.